We're live now? Okay, tight. The sound is good. Inshallah, let's get started. Bismillah with the questions. And inshallah ta'ala, as we announced, the 20th of October, 9:30 p.m., we'll be discussing Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray. The Prophet ﷺ said, pray as you have seen me praying. That will be our monthly lecture or workshop this month, which will not be on the last Thursday as it normally is because of traveling arrangements, but instead on the third Thursday. So that's the 20th of October at 9:30 p.m. And you know where to find it at on HadithDiscipleshop.com. Jazakumullahu khairan. Fadal.
What defines a great scholar? Someone wants to be a really great scholar, like Sheikh Al-Albani.
What defines a great scholar?
Yes. In this day and age.
Understood. What defines a great scholar in this day and age? I think that there are things which matter not of the day and age. What defined a great scholar back then are the same things that define a great scholar now. And then there are other things which are no longer applicable. That time, that era is gone. You understand what I'm trying to say? Like sports. What defines a great boxer? The great boxers during this era, they fought for 15 rounds, 20 rounds. It's not going to happen, what? In our day and age. People will pass out. They'll be exhausted. They'll die, right? But where the men made of different things back then, they were stronger. They had more endurance, et cetera, et cetera. Certain things are just, well, you're not going to find in our age. And the same applies to men 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Some of the things that, wow, how did they do that? How are they so strong? How do they lift up things? Everything is plastic. Just imagine back in the day, all of the crates and barrels being wood. You ever think about that? You ever move? You move with boxes, cardboard boxes. You have to be careful of your back. So just imagine 100 years ago when everything was solid wood. All of the furniture, everything was what? Solid wood. There was no IKEA. Wasn't no cheap, flaky wood panels. Everything was heavy. But yet and still those men, they did what? They lifted, they carried it, and they built the world in which we live. So the same applies to the metaphysical aspect of ilm. The ahadith that they memorized, the books that they wrote, what they put forth, it literally is, it doesn't seem real. How in the world did he write all of those volumes with just a quill and a candle at night? But he did it. So therefore, my answer is that there are certain things which define a great scholar that are the same. And there are certain things which are no longer applicable, and we have to take the era for what it is. Nah? All right, so with that being said, what defines a great scholar? His lineage, his history, who he studied with, who were his teachers. Also, his students, in both quantity and quality. Also, his works. Also, his influence and impact. The mark that he left, how many people were influenced by him. And I would also add, from that which defines a great scholar, is the amount of his enemies. That's a fact. And you may not hear that or you may not see that mentioned too often, right? And that's why the Arabs, they say, إِنَّ الْفَضْلَ مَا شَهِدَتْ بِهِ الْأَعْدَاءُ. They said true virtue and true props is given by one's enemy. So how many people hated this scholar? How many people are still talking about the scholar 50, 100, 500 years later? They're still slandering him. They're still talking about him. They're still gossiping. That proved what? That he left his mark on the world. Fame and infamy, right? So these are some of the things that define a great scholar. How much knowledge he learned, how much knowledge he taught, he spread, he acted upon, right? The dawah that he gave and the disciples that he left behind. Wallahu ta'ala alam, his works written and his works that were passed on orally through his disciples. And Allah surely knows best. However, there's not going to be an Ibn Taymiyyah walking around in 2022, right? And it's foolish for us to even expect that or require that. And there are different requirements of who was a scholar and who was a mujtahid that weren't even applicable to Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim 200, 300 years before their era. Let alone if we say that's a great scholar and no one else can be a great scholar, they're just a student of knowledge, whack that. And the same applies to Sheikh Al-Albani. Every generation is going to get what? Further and further away from that authenticity and that pure, concentrated strength, let alone with technology, right? And we have to realize that is that to be brutally honest, there will always be a need for memorization. That's a fact. And memory will always be special. And memory will always be virtuous. But our reliance on memory now is not like the need for reliance on memory what? Abadan. Not even back 20 years ago, before the iPhone came out. That's a fact. You understand what I'm trying to say? Wallahu ta'ala alam. Hamza.
Is cat urine and waste najis?
No. And if it is, then طيب, repeat the question. Cat urine and cat what?
Waste.
Is it najis? طيب, cats, they eat meat. They do. Cats eat meat. A cat is a hunter. So by default, its waste would be what? Would be najis. Understood? By default. However, dealing with the cat and handling the cat, interacting with the cat is going to be a little different than, let's say, as a dog. However, the cat does eat meat. It is a carnivore. So therefore, by default, its urine and its stool would be what? Would be najis. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Fadal. Fadal, akhi.
I was going to ask you a question about Medina University, because I know you attended that. I was going to ask, how's like the application, and it's like, how do you like apply for that?
How do you apply to Medina University?
And yeah, like what comes with it, and like
Understood.
the living, like how do you live there, and like all that.
Got it. Well, I think nowadays they apply it online, virtually.
Is there a tuition fee you have to pay?
No, it's free.
It's free.
Last time I checked, everything was free. All your expenses are paid.
Everything's free.
Yeah, and that is obviously a major advantage. Your plane tickets, your lodging is free. They give you a stipend for books once a year. Your education is 101% scotch free. And FYI, even though it's not a part of your question, there are many people who talk about Saudi this, Saudi that, the rulers. Maybe it's all true, maybe. But your country that you're coming from, how many Islamic scholarships are they giving every year? It's a serious question now, right? And then we're just using examples, right? We're not talking about no one country, but it's just examples. If somebody came from Egypt or Syria or Morocco or whatever, Saudis are this, they're that, they're this, they're that, okay. How many people were accepted in Morocco last year at the universities there? How many full-pay scholarships in Egypt? How many full-pay scholarships in Syria? You get the one I'm trying to make? You know, on the streets, you can't badmouth someone's hustle unless your hustle is what? Equal or what? Or better. He's this, he's that. All right, let me see your block. What you got? What you pushing? What you moving? You understand? So that's very important for us to understand, is that one of the virtues of studying in a place like Medina University or al-Qura, Saudi, is that it's free. As far as the applications and things like this, then I believe it's electronic now. And I also think you can still do it in person as well. There are requirements that you have to have. The brothers here, they can inform you of that, inshallah ta'ala. And you live there. Like I said, everything's free. And I think that the only thing that you really need to study successfully in Saudi is to be devoted. Be devoted. Once you're there, you fulfill the requirements, you're accepted, you have the scholarship. The only thing you got to do is just what? Focus and give it your all, inshallah.
Living, right? Do they give you a place to stay at?
Yes, lodging is free. It's free, yes. You have a place to stay. Basically, when you're there, if you're doing what you need to do, you don't have to worry about spending or buying anything. From food, drink, the roof over your head, even transportation to and from the Prophet's masjid, yes. So if you go over there focused, you don't have a wife, you don't have no kids, you don't have no bills, you can just what? Yeah, and just sponge all of it up. So for argument's sake, you went overseas, you studied 2 years in the language program, and you did 4-year college. Let's say for argument's sake, you stayed in Saudi for 6 years straight. And then you came back, alhamdulillah. I'm not going to do my master's. I'll do my master's here online if I want to. But khalas, I have my degree from Kulliyat al-Hadith or Sharia. I was away from my family for 6 years. I left when I was 18. I'm 24 now. Now you can get married. You're an imam of a masjid or whatever. Your profession, your trade, and you're straight. Versus, I got to go. I got to come back. Oh, I got to visit I gotta come back 6 months, 2 months, 3 months. Just go, lock yourself up, throw away the key, suck up the knowledge, and what? Once you have that degree, once you have that Islamic knowledge, no one or nothing can ever take it away from you, inshallah ta'ala. And you can do whatever you want to do afterwards, versus I want to study in college first, I want to get married first, I want to open up a business first, I want to do dawah first, open up a masjid first, translate, I want to give YouTube classes first, etc., etc., etc. So be mindful of that.
So you could get a visa for somebody if you live there, right? And for Medina.
That's a whole different story. Getting a visa for somebody else. That's a different discussion. Different discussion. Yeah.
Does it apply to or no?
Is it applied?
If you go live in Medina, like Medina University, like as a student there in Medina, can you apply for a visa for someone else?
You can apply, yes, but that's not a part of your scholarship.
That's not. So you have to pay.
It depends, but you can apply.
So you can.
Inshallah. Wallahu alam. Whether it be family or whatever the case may be. Yes. Wallahu alam. Last time I checked. Wallahu alam.
So everything as mentioned regarding the scholars, this is in line with someone, someone who aims to be nearest to Allah on the Day of Judgment. So someone who aims to be of the greatest scholars, is this in line with him trying to be,
There lies no doubt that having knowledge of Allah, teaching that knowledge, acting upon that knowledge, calling to that knowledge is one of the easiest and fastest ways to Jannah. And we've explained all of that in 40 Hadith on Seeking Knowledge, Volume 1. Seeking knowledge is a means to paradise. Wallahu alam. Fadda akhi.
Just remember because we got the atlas out. So I was talking with a brother, and we were talking about this hadith where the Prophet said the fitna comes from Najd.
Okay.
And he was showing me videos and things about scholars, the past some speakers who were saying that Najd is Iraq or someplace like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in my understanding or my sight or what came to me, Najd is the area of Riyadh in Saudi.
Okay.
Like that. So what is Najd?
Understood. There are many areas that are known now, but were different then. Whether it's Najd, Tihama, Yemen, Hijaz, okay, Persia, so on and so forth, Furs, Bilad al-Furs, etc. And it's a capital mistake for a person to apply the modern map today to the Prophet's hadith 1400 years ago. Some things are the same, and some things are very different. Some things were broader, some things may have been smaller. This country was annexed, these borders were expanded, etc., etc., etc. Everyone understand this? So with regards to what is Najd, Tihama, what is this area, so on and so forth. In general, Riyadh, Qasim, and these different areas, which is in the country known as Saudi Arabia, that's general, that's Najd. But it's bigger than that in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and that direction in that area towards the Levant, Iraq, so on and so forth. It's not just specifically that part. That's first and foremost. Secondly is people mentioning about the fitnas coming from that part of the earth or that part of the world, etc. And I don't think this is the objective of your question, but many people, they try to say that this proves that Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab's dawah was a dawah of fitna, of killing, of murdering, and this is the dalil that this fitna has come from there, so on and so forth. That's scholastically erroneous for so many different reasons. From those reasons why that's so erroneous, and it's important for us to mention this, is people, they have a problem with accepting history for what it is. They find that history is very uncomfortable. It's painful. It's full of blood. It's full of woes and suffering. And most people, they have to find a scapegoat, and they have to make someone to be the bad guy. Okay? So let's give a perfect example of this with regards to, let's say, the Ottoman Empire. Perfect example. So if we talk to the people who live in Turkey today, or the people who live in the Arab states today, in the Arab countries today, how did the Islamic Caliphate fall, so on and so on and so forth. So let's take the version of some people who come from Turkey. They're going to point their fingers and they're going to blame who? The Arabs. The Arabs destroyed it. The Arabs stabbed us in the back. the Arabs destroyed the Muslims, the Arabs took the help of the British, etc., etc., etc. And if you talk to some people, not all, from Arabic countries, they're going to say, what? It's their fault. We had to revolt, we had to do this, they were oppressing us, they were tyrannical, etc., 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 etc. Tayyib. And obviously, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab and Najd is going to come up. So there are those who want to say that the Islamic Caliphate was destroyed because of Ibn Abdul Wahhab and his disciples, revolting against the Ottomans, taking the help of the British, so on and so forth. Khair, inshallah. So according to some Turkish people, the Arabs were responsible for it, specifically Ibn Abdul Wahhab. But historically, were there no people in Turkey that were against the Ottoman line of succession? Historically, were there people who said that the Ottoman Empire is old, it's dying, it has to be pushed over, it's on its last leg? Not Arabs that collaborated with British and other powers. Were there people that wanted an Islamic caliphate or wanted to be westernized and modernized, and they didn't want the monarchy anymore, that were not of Arabian descent? But according to those people, they'll never what? They'll never talk about that. They'll never mention that. But it's just an Arab destroyed us. That's all they'll say. Then if you flip the script, you speak to the Arabs, okay, who say, some of them may say, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, he was the cause behind this, so on and so on and so forth, blah, 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 blah. Someone has a doctor's degree, not to have to mention anyone's name, etc. Oh, these people, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab's dawah was the foundation of ISIS. He was the foundation of terrorism. He was the foundation of takfir, etc., etc., etc. Tayyib, Jamil. So if the hadith talks about Najd and fitna coming from Najd, and the takfir of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and the killing and the burning and the shrines being destroyed, etc., etc. So what about the other Arab states that all took place or all had a hand in the revolt against the Ottomans? Were they all from Najd? The Egyptians, Jordan, Transjordan, Palestine, Syria, were any of them involved? Did they not revolt and fight and kill their own Muslim brothers for their own independence and believing the promise of Great Britain? You get the point I'm trying to make? So people, they just want to make it, what? One bad guy, and then they look and they search for it, delete and say, oh, the fitna is going to come from Najd, the qarn of shaitan, etc., etc., etc. You get the point I'm trying to make? So that's scholastically what? Bogus. That can't be true. Even if Najd is that specific area, and that's what's meant by the hadith. It's impossible to say that that is what the Prophet ﷺ was talking about. Because there was killing, there was murder, there was betrayal that happened in Sham, and happened in Misr, and happened in North Africa, and happened in Yemen, and happened in this country and that country where the Arabs lived. You get the point I'm trying to make? So it's very dangerous when people take and they pick and they choose what they want to pick and what they want to take and who they want to be the bad guy and who they want to be the hero. And I've said this many times before, and from my limited research, wallahu alam, you're not going to find too many people saying this. You find one doctor getting on in front of the camera telling the people, the Najdis, Ibn Abdul Wahhab, they destroyed the Muslims, they did this, they did that. And then the people in the crowd are just shaking their heads. Yeah, that's right. The Najdis, the Wahhabis, the Salafis, they're the people who made takfir, so on and so forth. But then you read the history and you look at the different countries of the Arab states. Green, white, black, red. How many countries have that flag? What do those colors represent? Get the point I'm trying to make? Palestine, Israel, Palestine. How was Palestine lost? Palestine was under what control? Whose control? Whose protection? Before that, you get the point? And the racism and the nationalism that the Arabs had, that the Turks had, that the Persians had, etc., etc., etc. But we have to find a bad guy throughout all of this mess. And Ibn Abdul Wahhab, he's the bad guy. He's the takfiri, khariji, he's the killer, he's the bloodthirsty Islamic cleric. He's the one who made the Muslims kill each other. Everyone understand this? And any major conflict that you read in history with regards to the Muslims, you'll find the same thing, the Crusades. It's easy to just say the Christians came from France and they just, killed everybody in Jerusalem. That's the simplistic version. But you read how many Muslims were fighting each other at the time, killing each other. You read the deals and the promises that Muslims made with the Franks to let them in Jerusalem if you let me keep my empire here. Don't bother us in this city. We'll help you go and take it. You understand? So people, they pick and they choose who they want to be the bad guy, and they oftentimes pick and they choose who they want to be the hero. So be very careful of that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Faddal ya akhi.
when it comes to visiting a sick person, how sick does the person have to be? Is it, what if it's just a little bit of coughing, but you visit him outside of the house?
It could apply, inshallah. However, عيادة المريض, visiting the sick, in most cases someone who's sick, and they can't necessarily get up and go about. And the only way that you could see them was through visiting them, versus someone who has a cough, but I'm still up and about on my feet. But for argument's sake, a bad cold or flu, linguistically and culturally, that's considered what? Sick. Wallahu alam. Ahmed.
What's the ruling on burying more than one person like the same like hole?
Burying more than one person, what?
Like the same one.
The same grave, same tomb? If it's a necessity, it can be done based off of necessity, lack of space. Wallahu alam. Fadda, from online, inshallah.
In Houston, Texas, is it okay to keep a dog in the house? It is a very hot place. And keeping the dog outside is tough on the dog's health. I have inherited this dog.
It's unlawful to have a dog as a pet, a dog inside of your house, period. The only time it's lawful to have a dog if it's a legitimate Islamic excuse. And with the legitimate Islamic excuse, the dog should not be inside of the house unless it is a necessity. Unless it's a necessity in certain situations. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
MS, Dallas, Texas. What is the difference between Allahumma barik and mashallah? And when should the Muslim say it?
Some things are the same, some things are different. When should a Muslim say it? You say it when you see something that you're pleased with, or you mention someone's name or some type of virtue for someone. Things like this. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala.
EM, Philadelphia, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you. Ameen. Could you please give the ruling on saying the dua? May Allah be pleased with you for other than the companions.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you. It is not exclusive to the companions. However, it's customary. That's the traditional way that we say that when we mention a Sahabi's name. But for argument's sake, asking Allah to be pleased with someone other than a Sahabi is not haram. It's lawful. Wallahu alam.
I am from Schenectady. Schenectady. Where can I get that cute little tea set from? That's on your desk.
I don't know. Somebody bought this for me. It was a gift. I didn't purchase it. I don't know. I'm unsure. But if you Google it, perhaps you can find it, inshallah ta'ala. Wallahu alam.
HK, Manchester, UK, Chef, just like Imam Nawawi has a Shah on Sahih Muslim. Are there explanations explaining Imam Muslim's explanation in Arabic?
Explanations, what?
Explanations explaining Imam Muslim's explanation in Arabic.
I don't know. Maybe they should check the wording of the question. Maybe they mean something else. I'm not too sure.
MD Fresno, California, assalamu alaikum. Sheikh, the hadith on the ascension when he mentions the Prophet seeing an angel with 70,000 heads, 70,000 mouths, etc. Is this an authentic narration?
Allahu alam. I can't say that that's authentic.
BT Bronx, New York. Is Salah valid if they are being led virtually? Also, can someone pray 2 rakat if they hear a khutbah?
Salah virtually should be avoided. Should be avoided. Can it be valid? Can a person make that argument? It's a long discussion. But I would say it should be avoided. As far as making 2 rak'ah when you hear a khutbah virtually, then you make 2 rak'ah for a specific reason. A reason that's tangible. Whether it be wudu or the adhan or tawbah or istikhara or whatever the case may be. And not necessarily a virtual khutbah. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
UM Oakland, California. Assalamu alaikum. Advice for a couple trying to observe the waiting period for talaq. Should they sleep in separate beds?
A couple that's going through Iddah, should they sleep in separate beds, etc.? No, they shouldn't. Rather, the scholars of Islam say is that when a woman is in the iddah, she should try her best to draw near and close to her husband. And she should try to show her husband the virtue of her and basically tell him in 100 words, don't let me go. I'm righteous, I'm beautiful, I'm good to your children, I'm a good cook, I'm etc., etc., etc. Don't let me go. And this is from the wisdoms behind the iddah being so long. That comes from talaq. And that is because it's presupposed is that the talaq is coming from the man being displeased with the wife. In contrast to the khula', in which the woman is displeased with the husband, and that's why the iddah period, according to the correct view, wallahu alam, is so short. Rather, there is no iddah for them to be together. It's just an iddah of istibra', making sure that she isn't pregnant. A woman having one menstrual cycle, one clean state, this proves that she's not pregnant, versus her having 3. All right? Unless they're fighting, unless things are very nasty, very bad between them, and it's going to lead to more rancor, more fighting, that's a different story. But if that's not the case, no, basically she's still your wife. And for those 3 months, approximately, give or take, 3 menstrual cycles or 3 pure states, she is to live with you, you're to live with her. You still have to take care of her, feed her, so on and so forth. Wallahu alam.
And Boston, M&A, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, can you explain what makes a man the youth?
What makes a man youth?
The youth.
The youth. Well, I mean, that's cultural. The Arabs may say a thing, Americans may say something else. You know, Arabs may say if a person is 40, then he is a sheikh. He's no longer shab. Or there's different words and terms, kuhul, shabab, shayban, so on and so forth. Dayyuth. Oh, not the youth. Okay. Al-Muhim, the scholars of Islam, they say, Ad-Dayyuthu huwa alladhi yarda bil-fahishati fi ahlihi. A Dayyuth is someone who's pleased with obscenities, with unchaste, immoral things being done to or with his wife. Many people, they translate the word Dayyuth to mean a pimp. And that's not necessarily the proper translation, right? For so many reasons. Now, first and foremost, as a pimp, the woman that he's pimping doesn't have to be his woman specifically, right? Let alone if you honestly study the psychology behind pimps. Pimp is a whole culture, and it's a whole society, and oftentimes it's based off of professional dealings, let alone social relationships. I'm looking out for her, I take care of her, I provide for her, no one can do anything wrong to her. That's not the same as someone who has a wife and he's pleased with his wife sleeping around with other men, flirting around with other men, so on and so on and so forth. Everyone understand this? What's important is that I know for as a fact, even though it's not mentioned in the question, many brothers, they have a poor understanding of the hadith, and they think that if a woman goes outside the house without wearing this, he's the youth. And if a brother allows his wife to work, he's the youth. That's wrong. That's incorrect. That's erroneous once again, right? That's not the youth. The youth is a man is okay with another man sleeping with his wife, right? That's not the same as my wife goes to work. My wife doesn't wear niqab, so therefore I'm a dayyuth, or he's a dayyuth. La, laysa kadha. Wallahu alam.
IA from AC, Assalamu alaikum. Are abortion haram in the case of rape or incest?
Is an abortion haram in case of rape or incest? It should be avoided. It should be avoided. The child can be raised, even if the mother can't bear the pain to raise the child. The child is to be taken care of and provided for. As far as if the woman says, I can't bear the pain of carrying this child, so on and so forth, I would not advise with an abortion. Some scholars allow abortions at certain ages, at certain periods of time. And some scholars, modern day scholars, they say is that whenever there are more reasons and there are more reasons behind the abortion, then there's more room for it being legal. Everyone understand this? A severe deformity of the child, imminent danger upon the mother, rape, so on and so forth. The more reasons the stronger they are, then the what? the more breathing room you have in the issue of an abortion, which is by default prohibited. Everyone understand this? And if I'm not mistaken, we have a monthly lecture on this, on these rulings. Naam? You can check that out on HadithDiscipleshop.com. We spoke on this issue in what? In detail. The rulings of abortion. Wallahu alam.
OS Matthews, NC, Assalamu alaikum. What is the ruling on working on Lowe's garden stocking plants where some plants are holiday themed, such as pumpkins or plant pots, and say Halloween, especially if the job is not necessarily just a side income?
Can you work in Lowe's in which you have plants that have holiday themes or seasonal themes, etc.? The job isn't a necessity, it's a side job, so on and so forth. Right. In brief, as we've said many times before, a Muslim should try his best to avoid anything which is doubtful. If it causes you doubt, then do without. That's rule number one. When in doubt, do without. Da' ma yaribuk. Qaida number one. Qaida number two is that a Muslim is responsible for sure the haram that he directly touches, buys, sells, eats, consumes, or feeds directly. As far as that which is indirectly touched by the Muslim or the Muslim has some involvement in it, then it isn't the same. It's a bit different. Point number three is that there's so many different jobs today in 2022. If you say they're haram, then everything will be haram. So for brother, he works as a security guard in a casino. Or he works as a security guard for the parking lot, not even near the casino. That's haram, you can't do that. You're cooperating upon ithm wal udwan, sin and transgression. The brother who works as a chef, he doesn't cook the pork or the swine or whatever. Ta'awan al ithmi wal udwan. You work in a supermarket, you work in Walmart. That's what? Cooperation upon sin and transgression. Tayyib. So what if you work for sanitation? You pick up the trash, the garbage, the rubbish, for a church or for a gay nightclub or a straight nightclub. Can that nightclub remain open with a mountain of trash in front of his door? If you work for the city, you work with the sewage, the plumbing, you work for the electricity, you put down concrete on the pavement, you put the asphalt down. People can't access this haram place unless you put down that road. Or if you're a contractor, a plumber, an electrician, someone calls you up and they want you to do the electricity in this place, which is going to be whatever it's going to be that displeases Allah. So every level, somehow, some way, there's going to be some what? Cooperation upon what? Ithm wa udwan. Finances, accountant, so on and so forth, one way or another. So once you apply that fatwa, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't work here, you can't work there, then 9% of, or 90% of the jobs will be haram. That's a fact, right? So we have to be mindful of that. Last but not least, I will tell you this, is that many people, they confuse season with holiday. And that's a capital mistake. A pumpkin or corn or squash or butternut squash or zucchini, that doesn't mean Halloween. And some ignorant people may think and feel. That's a fall season. It is not a celebration, it's just the fall season. That doesn't mean that you're actually celebrating Hallows Eve. Everyone understand this? Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Assalamu alaikum. AU Seattle, Washington. As a truck driver, I picked up a load not knowing the destination or where the load was going, which was a factory to make a haram type of drink. What should I do with the money from that load?
Everyone understand? Same question. And imagine if we apply that to truck drivers. What truck driving would be lawful? Let's say you deliver potatoes, right? Are those people who buy those potatoes not bars, restaurants that sell khamr, nightclubs, this, that, churches? What can you do? I deliver potatoes, right? You're not responsible for what every single person does, nah? And if you had to check every load, double check every load, that would be an extreme haraj upon the Muslims today. And Allah surely knows best.
RS ATL Georgia is having racial preference in marriage wrong.
This will be our last question tonight, inshallah ta'ala. Having racial preference in marriage, is it wrong? No, it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. You have your taste, you have your preferences, and anyone who says that's racism, they don't know what they're talking about. The problem is when you discriminate, you show prejudice to people only because of their race, right? Wallahu ta'ala alam, sallallahu sallam wa barak, ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabina wa imamina Muhammad.